What's up, everybody? Good morning. Welcome to, excuse me, welcome to a Thursday edition of Morning Scone presented by Brock, the Baton Rouge Orthopedic Clinic. Hudco Roofing, HudcoRoofing.com. Restored Motion, so restoredmotions.com. And ProCharge EV, ProChargeEV.com. Okay, peeps, what's going on? Hope your morning's off to a fantastic start. We inch closer to LSU and Georgia State. Saints, of course, on the bye this week. So, low-key football weekend.
The only way I've been able to help keep my mental health a priority has been through therapy using BetterHelp. After graduating college.
Sorry. Kind of a low-key football weekend in these parts. As we mentioned, LSU plays Saturday night in Tiger Stadium, 7 o'clock, ESPN 2 against Georgia State. Had a chance to talk to Sean Elliott on AFR on Wednesday. And good interview. That's a guy who's got a lot of experience in the SEC. He was at South Carolina for a long time. Played at App State, coached at App State. He was on that App State staff that beat Michigan back in 2007. Came to LSU with App State and in 2008. Came to LSU with South Carolina in 2012. That was the great game when South Carolina was ranked number 3 in the country. Jadeveon Clowney, Devin Taylor, Marcus Lattimore, Stephon Gilmore, Connor Shaw, like that great team. And LSU was coming off the loss to Florida, the hammer and the nail game, and great game against South Carolina in Tiger Stadium. And LSU prevailed, and then of course LSU beat South Carolina in 2015. That was the game that got moved to Baton Rouge. It was a South Carolina home game that got moved to Baton Rouge because of flooding in Columbia. Sean Elliott was on the staff at South Carolina then, and then actually, if you remember, after that LSU game against South Carolina in 2015, that was after that game that lost. Steve Spurrier resigned. It was his last game coaching. Sean Elliott was promoted to interim head coach at South Carolina. So a lot of experience. He's been in Georgia State for 7 years now. They're in Atlanta. They play at the old Turner Field, Olympic State, which was Olympic Stadium for the '96 Olympics. Then Turner Field, where the Braves played. Now they converted it to a football stadium where Georgia State plays. So anyway, they had a good start to their year, man. They started 6-1. They've lost 3 in a row, and they haven't been close. It's like a combined score of like 44-10 or something like that. So great opportunity for LSU's offense against a defense that's really been fighting it the last month there at Georgia State. And then, of course, the Saints on the bye this weekend. So low-key week over there as they basically just get out of Dodge for a week, which is a good thing for them. They need it. Pretty good NFL game tonight as well. Excited for this one. You can see Joey B in prime time. That's fun. So Burrow and the Bengals against the Ravens. That one's in Baltimore. Ravens beat the Bengals earlier this year. And that was a game, by Burrow's own admission, that he wasn't himself yet. It was week 2, and the Ravens won that one 27-24. And Burrow's been different here, obviously. Bengals started 1-3. They ripped off 4 straight wins and then blew it against the Texans this past, credit C.J. Stroud in Houston, but Bengals blew it this past weekend. But in any event, so Cincy at 5-4 on the road in Baltimore against the 7-3 Ravens, who all they just do is keep winning, man. So, all right, let's say some good mornings. Y'all know the drill. Fire away. Ask anything about anything. Charlie Cavell, Kelly Gross, good morning. Appreciate y'all for being here with us as always. Wacky Chris, good morning. How long does Jaden play this week? Think it depends how it goes. Pretty obvious answer, but the Army game, he didn't play the second half. If you remember, LSU got the ball right before the end of the first half and had a quick score again, and so they were up 35. I believe LSU was up 35. Nothing at half. Against Army. Make sure I got that right. I'm pretty sure it was 35-0 at half. 38, excuse me. 38-0 at half. So the issue was not in doubt, and so he didn't play the second half. Now, The Grambling game, I believe he played the first possession of the second half, or maybe he played the entire third quarter. I'm looking at it right here. Nope. Nussmeier played the entire second half against Grambling too. So, yeah, LSU was up 42 to 10 and a half. So Nussmeier played the entire second half against Grambling and against Army. So if LSU does what they did against Grambling and Army to Georgia State, then you'll likely see Nussmeier start the second half. But I think they're going to make sure. Look, I put it to you this way. For Jaden to come out of the game, LSU is going to have a big lead. For LSU to get a big lead, Jaden's going to have to put up really good numbers, right? So the one thing worth keeping an eye on or remembering is against Army, he basically didn't run the football at all. He had like 280 passing in the first half. Against Grambling in the first half, he threw for 269 and 5 touchdowns and ran it 5 times for 29 yards. So I think it's one of those things where you probably don't expect him to run much. He'll probably bolster the passing stats. Need that from elite neighbors as well. Wacky Chris, if it's a half, it's a half, but it's just till LSU gets a big lead. Bailey C., for all we talk about Brian Kelly's ability to hire, 2 of the 3 coordinators aren't going to make it through 2 years. 2 of the 3. Well, I guess you're talking about, are you talking about Polian, like special teams coordinator? I think primarily, I'll put that one on the side and I'll just focus on the OC and DC. Denbrock, obviously a great hire, and House had a great year last year. It just hasn't taken this year. And it's not to say you're flawless, but you have to have the ability to correct your mistake when you recognize something doesn't work. Talked about that at Notre Dame as well. He hired Brian Van Gorder, who was former head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, Van Gorder was a NFL defensive coordinator, and on its face looked like a great hire, and it didn't work, and they fired him and replaced him with, I believe that's when they replaced him with Mike Elko, and that worked. Then Elko got hired away to Texas A&M, and he replaced him with Marcus Freeman, and that worked. And before Van Gorder, he had Bob Diaco, and Bob Diaco had great defenses. And they were undefeated, played for a national championship. That was the Manti Te'o year. And then Bob Diaco got the head coaching job at UConn. So it's not to say you're going to bat 1,000, but it's to say keep your misses small, the number of misses small, and whenever you do miss, fix it. And he's done that. He's been able to do that. So let's do it again. Wendell Norman, Larry Garner, Jesse Brown, Abner Neal, good morning. DP Hinton, 2003. Does anyone try to poach Mike Denbrock as a head coach or coordinator for another program? What an interesting conversation. Someone asked that yesterday, but it's interesting that I don't know that Denbrock was actually a very popular hire when it was made a year ago, and now people are worried about him getting poached. I'll give you sort of an abbreviated answer because I did give a long answer yesterday. The short answer is probably not, because for a head coach. Because for Mike Denbrock to leave, Mike Denbrock's 59, so for him to leave a job where he's making over $1 million a year, a place where his family's comfortable, his wife and his son, they have a young son, he's not going to leave to go take a G5 job. And I don't think he's going to be a candidate for, look at Brent Venables. Brent Venables was forever a great defensive coordinator. Oklahoma, then at Clemson, and everyone wondered, why can't this guy get a head coaching job? Well, he finally gets one at Oklahoma. I don't think Denbrock's getting the top 10 head coaching job. You know what I mean? And so what kind of job would he leave for? Would someone poach him as an OC? 100% not. There's no reason at all to leave for that. So I think Denbrock will be back. Lil Cormier, Taz, good morning. Why don't the Saints use play action and motion in their offense? That's an issue to me. I'm always smiling because I know it was a big story earlier this year where they weren't using any motion, and then Nick Underhill wrote about it, and media started talking about it on Twitter, and then the next week they started doing it. So, yeah, they're not very creative. They're not. Jacob Thompson, good morning, Matt. How will the new SEC football conference work for next season? What do you mean? How will it work? Like scheduling? I mean, they've already released the schedules, so it's an 8-team schedule, 8-game schedule. There's no, and it's a 1-year format, by the way. They just did this format for 1 year until they could decide some type of like long-term format. So, like LSU is gonna play Oklahoma in Tiger Stadium next year. LSU will not play Auburn. They do go to Florida. So like, we know the opponents for next year. Make defense great again. Morning, Matt. With what seems to be like failures at recruiting the cornerback position, with guys decommitting this week, do you think it's easier to justify letting the defensive staff go after the season? Okay, so let me be very clear. In the time that you've had I talked about this the other day, and I said, let me be very clear, and now I'm going to be vague. No, I'm going to be very clear. LSU purged those players out of the class. I'll be very direct. Andre Evans and Kai Bates, LSU purged them out of the class. And it's hard for fans to look and go, but that kid was a top 100 player in the country. I get it. They purged him out of the class. In the same time, they took commitments from a kid out of Hattiesburg and a kid out of JFK in New Orleans. The point I made on Monday or Tuesday, whatever day that was, is do you trust Frank Wilson? I do. I think you have a stark contrast in the recruiting strategy that Brian Polian had and the recruiting strategy that Frank Wilson has. And I like Frank Wilson. So I don't know that anybody else is going to say that directly, but I will. Like, it was a deal where they're like, hey, y'all should probably go try to find it somewhere else. Now, I think is a completely separate issue from just backpack speaking, from whether or not the defensive coaching staff keeps their jobs. For example, I think Robert Steeples is in way over his head. I would think that they would make a change there as well. Hang on one second. Sorry. Anyway, so just to be very like, LSU has a lot of work to do defensively. We all know that, and I'm not suggesting anything to the contrary. However, the cornerback decommitments, like Kai Bates this week decommitting, was not a situation of the player going elsewhere. That was the coaching staff saying, you should probably find a different school. But no coach will ever say that. And it allows the player publicly to sort of save face and operate at a position of strength. And it's not always the case, by the way. I mean, there's times players decommit that you want to keep in your class. That's not always the case. It is the case with this. Antron Hemingway, good morning. Taylor Hudson, good morning. What bowl are you projecting us to go to and against to? Very likely the ReliaQuest Bowl, which is the old Outback Bowl. That or the Gator Bowl are going to be your two most likely scenarios. And if you go to ReliaQuest, there's a really good chance you're going to play Notre Dame. Brian Irwin, morning, Matt. Do you think Jaden, Malik, and Brian Thomas will play in the bowl game to boost draft stock? You're not going to boost draft stock in a bowl game, Brian. That's an old narrative, and it's just not true anymore. It's, do you want to play in the bowl game to have one more run with your guys? And I would think, I don't know. It just, Brian, it makes so much sense for those guys to say, let me just start getting ready for the combine. I mean, I get it. Why go risk injury when you could have that month, right? The entire month of December preparing for the combine instead of starting your combine prep in January. You get a whole nother month to prepare for the combine. Like, I get it. I get why guys don't play in the bowl game. What's the point? Finish what you started, your team. Like, stop it, y'all. Like, you got to acknowledge what a bowl game is. And the players are telling you now what a bowl game is. A bowl game is a money grab. It's what it's always been. It's what it's always been. It's not a reward. It's none of that stuff. It's a money grab. It's the bowl committees that do TV deals and get sponsorships and make a lot of money, and they pass it off as this great reward for a season at the end of the... It's not. It's just not. Nope. I mean, if you're Malik Neighbors and in February you're going to be in Indianapolis for the combine, like the old cliche, the biggest job interview of your life, you're going to spend a month preparing to play Notre Dame in the ReliaQuest Bowl and potentially risk an injury, or you're going to spend that month getting yourself ready for the combine. Trivia Carter, Jonathan Martin, Jerry G, Jesse Brown, and just to the other point, like, what is Malik Neighbors going to do in a bowl game to boost his draft stock that he hasn't already done? I mean, the guy's leading the country in receiving yards. It's not like, well, we're still on the fence about Malik Neighbors, but if he goes and plays at 11 a.m. on New Year's Day in the ReliaQuest Bowl in front of 20,000 people, then we know he's a number one pick. Come on. Brett DeGrow, Tim Gotro, Jerry G. Will Jameis Winston start over Derek Carr next Sunday at the Falcons? No. Hunter Broadhead, hey, Matt, good morning. Do you think Josh Allen will win a Super Bowl? I'm going to say yes. Ryan Pike, and in part because I think you have a really good clump of quarterbacks, but you don't have a Brady that's just going to own the AFC with respect to Patrick Mahomes. And obviously he's already won 2 Super Bowls and played in a third, and Joe Burrow's there as well. But I do think we're already seeing, like, eventually Andy Reid won't be there any longer, and I think you're already seeing some of the erosion in Kansas City with a lot of those offensive stars leaving, i.e. Tyreek Hill. But I do think the door will be open. Yes, I do. Ryan Pike, bold prediction, Harold Perkins transfers out of LSU for his junior year. Okay. Weston Weaver, Tiger Diver, who do you think gets the Mississippi State job? I'd hire Dan Mullen. I don't know who's going to get it, but I'd hire Dan Mullen. He's the best coach they've ever had, literally the best coach in their program's history. Hire him again. Irfan Sayad, Brad David, why do they schedule cupcake games in November? Will those ever go away? They'll go away, Brad, whenever we have the thing that I've been calling for forever, which is one true college football, invite only, top 50 or 60 teams in college football, and you play 12 games, 12 meaningful games against those teams. And the group of five and all the exiles just go play each other. And it's a meritocracy, and you eat what you kill, and you don't have the Power Five funding the athletic departments for smaller schools. I mean, maybe I'll have time today. Maybe I'll do this today. I think I will do this today. I am going to do this today on the show. You know how I have yelled forever about the insanity of giving a G5 an automatic bid, and how there's going to, not only to the New Year's Six, but also there's going to be an automatic bid for a G5 in the playoff. Have you looked at all at the Big 12 standings? Probably not, I'm guessing. You know who's dead last in the Big 12 with a 1-6 conference record? Cincinnati. You know who's second to last in the Big 12 with a 2-5 conference record? UCF. You know who's third to last in the Power 5 with a 2-5 conference record? BYU. Then Baylor. You know who's also tied for second worst record in the Big 12 with a 2-5 conference record? TCU. Houston. My point is, the four new schools in the league, Houston, BYU, UCF, Cincinnati, are all bringing up the rear. Cincinnati's 1-6, the other ones are 2-5. We've asked forever. Okay, you're a G5 school. You take one big swing against a Power 5 opponent a year, and you might win that game. Oh, you see, we can compete. Can you compete for 12 straight weeks? Answer, no, you can't. That's why you're a G5. I'm going off on that today. I am going off on that today. Okay, I got to go. Y'all have an awesome day. Shout out to Brock and Hudco. LSU Daily's live. We'll see you for AFR 3 Piece.